So now we move on to 17 and the Las Vegas Raiders, who, much like the Cardinals, I felt like were disappointing in their finish to the season, had golden opportunities to try to make the postseason, flamed out after starting the season 6-3 with some big wins, home against New Orleans, at Kansas City. This Raiders team looked poised to make the postseason, and then they had some duds. That Atlanta game, one of the biggest stinkers of the year from any team. They almost let the Jets beat them, had to come from behind in epic fashion to win that football game. But the loss on a Saturday night to Ryan Fitzpatrick as he comes in and blazes them. This Vegas team had opportunities last year and they let them slip through their fingers. So now we go through the same song and dance we go through every year. Well, let's upgrade the quarterback position. Well, Derek Carr wasn't the problem last year. Derek Carr is never the problem in Vegas. It's everything around him that's the problem, including the wide receiver position. Their best receiver is their tight end. They have no defense. They have all these issues. They haven't drafted well, which is really frustrating because I'm a Mike Mayock guy, but I think he squandered away some golden opportunities to upgrade that defense. They've gotten rid of 17 defensive coordinators over the last year and a half. They are a mess when you kind of analyze what's going on, but it's a quick fix if they just get some things right. One thing that they haven't had to worry about in all of this is the offensive line. They've spent the most money on their offensive line over the last 5 years. And then this offseason, they decided to just blow it up in one fell swoop. They trade Trent Brown, who was all kinds of banged up last season and dealt with COVID and all those things. So they trade him to New England. They blow up the interior of their offensive line. They move on from Gabe Jackson. And Rodney Hudson was so pissed off about how they did Gabe Jackson. He wanted out. And so they ship him to Arizona. And so now the interior of their offensive line looks really funny. So now you got to fix it, because if we know one thing about Derek Carr, we can sit here and talk about him not being the problem. You want Derek Carr to become a problem. Don't fix the offensive line, because Derek Carr does not handle pressure well. So if you're the Raiders and you want Derek Carr to build on what was damn near his best season of his career last year, and you're seeing him start to really get it under John Gruden, then what you need to do is fix that offensive line before you take another snap under center. And so I think the right pick here for the Vegas Raiders at 17 is to get a multi-tooled offensive lineman that is so versatile, can play multiple positions, that makes you feel really good about what you have on that offensive line. Look, Richie Incognito can't keep coming back on 1-2 year deals for the next 30 years. At some point, you need to get fresh blood in there. Here's a guy that I think can help you with inside and outside. With the 17th pick in the 2021 mock draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select So here comes these damn wheeling and dealing Miami Dolphins. Look at them, finally on the clock for the first time. After having the third pick in the draft and then moving back to 12, they move back up to 6, and then now they move back to 20. Here's their first pick at 18. This is their pick in the draft. So they take the Texans pick, flip it, smack it up, flip it, and rub it down. Oh no! And they've done all of these things, and now they're just making their first pick at 18, and they still feel really good. Why? Because a guy that they considered at 6 is still sitting here. How does this happen? How does this happen? The guy that they were thinking about taking at 6 is sitting right in front of them at 18. This is not a hard decision to make. The only thing that's going to be a little awkward was that the guy that they're going to select here said that he would take the quarterback that he played with this year over the quarterback that he's going to be playing with next year. Okay, and the guy that he played with the previous year at Alabama. But we can get past that. Just like Michael Brockers, who when the Rams traded for Matthew Stafford said, man, Jared Goff was holding us back. Now he was traded to Detroit, and he's like, oops, I probably shouldn't have said that, because now Jared Goff's my teammate. Same thing here. It's water on the bridge. They'll figure that out. They'll be fine. They'll move on. They're grown men. Bottom line is, you don't pass on this kind of talent if you're the Dolphins. At 18, you need a number one. This guy has number one wide receiver written all over him. And so this is a no-brainer. The Miami Dolphins at 18 turn in the card and select Now we move on to 19 and the Washington football team, and what a season it was in 2020 for Washington. They fire Bruce Allen, they bring in Ron Rivera. He vows to change the culture, and that he did, it seems like, overnight. He moves on from the old staff. He brings in a bunch of guys that he's comfortable with. They win the division. It wasn't a great division by any stretch of the imagination, but they still win it at 7-9 with 4 different quarterbacks under center. There's been a lot of discussion as to whether Washington should make a move for a quarterback, but Ron Rivera and his new appointed GM, Martin Mayhew and company, have made it abundantly clear they're not mortgaging the future for a quarterback in this year's draft class, or at least that's what it appears, that they're not going to go above and beyond to go get a quarterback. Now, if one were to fall in their lap or get close, maybe they'd entertain it, but none of that actually transpired in this year's draft, and so they're going to stand pat at 19. And so what do they really need to do? They've made some moves to get the cornerback William Jackson III in free agency, really upgrade that position. And they went and got a receiver in Curtis Samuel. So that takes the receiver position off the list of needs at 19. Now, receiver may still be a need. Corner may still be a need. Safety may still be a need a little bit further back in the draft. And they've still got other picks to address that. 4 picks in the first 3 rounds of this draft. So they've got some capital to be able to clean up some of those deficiencies. And even tackle, which has been a big source of discussion at 19, is a decision that they have to mull over here at 19 and further back in the draft. But when it's all said and done, the biggest need for Washington right now is linebacker. It's the one thing that's holding back what is a borderline elite defense, is they don't have the horses on the second level. They've got one in Cole Holcomb, but they have 2 linebacking spots that need to be filled, and they can fill one of them here. And they've got options because only one linebacker has been taken in this draft. And, you know, the crazy part about looking at this whole entire process is we've talked about a bunch of linebackers, but there's one guy that has made this rapid ascension up the board and has come from a 3rd rounder to a 2nd rounder to a late first to a now mid-first round pick. Ron Rivera talks about culture, and he talks about positional flex, and he talks about guys that fit what he wants to do. Rivera comes from a military background. Well, so does this player that he's about to select. Rivera is a stickler for leaders and guys being the hardest workers, and your best players have to be your hardest workers. Well, this guy was exactly that at Kentucky. And so when you look at all of and they met with him multiple times on Zoom to boot. This is the pick here at 19 for Washington. They've got a chance to get their middle linebacker for years to come. And Ron Rivera, if there's one thing he knows, it's linebacker play, as we know from his time in Carolina. So with the 19th overall selection, the Washington football team selects So the Miami Dolphins are on the clock for the 2nd time in 3 picks. They just took their wide receiver, Jalen Waddle, to give them a legitimate number 1 wide receiver. If you don't believe that they already currently have one in Devontae Parker, whether it's 1A, 1B, or Parker's really more of a number 2, that's up for you to decide. They got Jalen Waddle. That's going to really help their offense exponentially. Now, they need to go to the defensive side. Now, I talked about them having one real clear deficiency. They spent all that free agent money on the cornerback position. They drafted Noah Igbenogany last year to kind of shore up their secondary at the cornerback position. One of the biggest issues for the Dolphins defensively is they just don't have a consistent go-getter off the edge. A guy that you just say, hey, it's 3rd and 9, go get him. Go bag us a QB. This is the opportunity to get one of those guys here at 20, and I think they're going to take full advantage. Now, the question is, who do you get? Got a couple of Miami guys sitting here. You got a Georgia guy. There's options galore. What do the Dolphins decide to do? I don't know. How about we find out together? So at 20, the Miami Dolphins in the LouieTeeNetwork mock draft select Last year was a great year for the Indianapolis Colts, who are now on the clock at 21. And they did a lot of good things. They went out, they got Phillip Rivers. In his lone year in Indianapolis, he leads them to an 11-5 record. In the postseason, they almost upset the Buffalo Bills on the road in that postseason game. And I think they're building in the right direction. I love their GM. He's been very adamant about not selecting a first-round quarterback because he knows the perils that come with selecting a first-round quarterback. So they go out and they trade for Carson Wentz, who's very comfortable with their head coach and Frank Reich, and they're hoping that he can get the most out of Carson Wentz. So the whole quarterback narrative has been removed off the table for GM Chris Ballard. So now the question is, what do the Indianapolis Colts need the most? They're sitting here at 21, and there are a lot of things that they could take a look at. You dirty bastard. We had this discussion already. I said, if you're going to do this, at least warn me. Here come the Jets up to 21, and here come those tricky Jets. And we talked about the Jets earlier and what they need to do. And the first thing they had to do, this was not optional. If you do not get a quarterback, we have a problem. So they already took care of that problem. They got their guy in Zach Wilson already. And so now they were sitting there with a second first round pick via the Seattle Seahawks. And now they're going to flip that thing around and get the guy that they think was going to come off the board before they could take him. And so the biggest position of need after quarterback for the Jets is cornerback. Okay, we all remember the Raiders fiasco at the end of that season, the cover zero blitz that Greg Williams called and all of that good jazz. They got nothing at corner, man. They've struck out at corner for the last 3 or 4 years, going back to when they signed knock knees in free agency in Tremaine Johnson about 3 years ago. That was an epic fail. They drafted the corner D. Milliner out of Alabama in the first round. That was an epic fail. They can't get the cornerback position right for some reason. And so here's an opportunity to get it right. And if anybody can assess who fits in his defense and what good cornerback play looks like, it's Robert Saleh. He's gotten the most out of guys in San Francisco for years. For years, he's gotten the most out of players at the cornerback position, including Emmanuel Mosley. So when I look at this Jets secondary, I say they need a cornerback. And if they didn't move up, they weren't going to get the guy that they want. And for me, there were 3 really good corners in this draft. And then I feel like there's a bit of a little drop off. Not much. It's not like an epic drop off a cliff, but there's a little bit of a drop off to the next wave, or 4 corners. All right. And then I felt like there was a little bit of a teeny little dip. Okay. After those 4. This was the last of those 4. So the Jets identified that, and they're going to go up and get their guy. And they felt like Tennessee, who lost a bunch of corners in the offseason, Adoree Jackson, and they also lost the ex-Patriots corner, Malcolm Butler. They were going to try to take a corner. So they said, hey, we probably need to get in front of Tennessee. So not going to cost you a bunch to move up 2 spots and still get your guy. And that's exactly what the Jets are going to do here. With the 21st pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select So the Tennessee Titans sit here and they're like, you dirty mother. Jets got right in front of them. It happens, man. This draft thing right here, man, it's a dirty son of a bitch. And if you don't watch your back, you get got. And the Titans just got. They were going to take Greg Newsome, and the Jets knew it. That's why they jumped him. So now the Titans have to go to plan B. Always have a plan B. And in most cases, make sure you got plan C too. Have a contingency plan. Teams that are right around the 20s sometimes, they get effed because they don't have a contingency plan. They got their eyes set on a guy and they think that guy's going to be there. And when he's not, they scramble around and they're shuffling their papers trying to figure out how to rebound after getting smoked, like the Jets just smoked them. If you're the Titans, you look around your roster and you say, okay, we don't have to take corner here. We wanted to, but we got a corner in the offseason in Janoris Jenkins, so it lessens the blow of not getting the guy we want here. And we still got picks. We can get a corner later on in the draft. And this is a deep corner draft. So we wanted this guy, but we're going to be fine. But when I look at the wide receiver position, I'm like, hey, slim pickings. You lose Corey Davis. All right. You also lose Khalif Raymond. And you replaced those guys with Reynolds? Let me say that again. You lose Corey Davis. You lose Khalif Raymond. And you replace him with Josh Reynolds? No disrespect to Josh Reynolds, but you know what I always say. Anytime somebody says no disrespect, there's disrespect coming after the conjunction. No disrespect to Josh Reynolds, but he's Josh Reynolds. So the Titans have to do something at receiver because A.J. Brown can't do it alone. And so the Titans look at the receiver position. They say, you know what? We don't need a Corey Davis clone because you could get that here in Rashad Bateman. You can get a Corey Davis clone. Even though they're not the same guy. One's 210 pounds. The other's 190. One's 6'3". The other's 6 feet. Still, he's the same player. All right. It's like, nah, we want something more dynamic, more explosive, and different. We need a change up. Khalif Raymond left. We don't have a deep threat anymore. We need one. Well, I got the guy for you right here. Gives you a little something and sizzle in the run game too. And you can do a lot of different things with this guy. And if need be, you can put him back on returns too. Guy's got a little bit of flair and spunk there as well. So at 22 to rebound, this is a good rebound for the Tennessee Titans, who select my guy, Chris Ballard. He did it again. Boy, that man knows how to work the draft. And so moving back 2 spots, picks up a little bit of draft capital and still going to get the guy that he was thinking about taking at 21. That's how you play the draft. You play to win, but you're not playing checkers. You're playing chess. So we know that the Colts had a good season last year and they got Carson Wentz. And one of the biggest problems with Wentz last year, one, the talent around him was not great. Okay, that's fine. But 2, more importantly, the offensive line was a mess in Philadelphia. Injuries and shuffling around the deck multiple times. And they refused to run the football. They're not going to do that in Indianapolis. But they lost a massive piece this offseason when Anthony Costanzo decided to hang it up. And they have to replace him. Not now, like right now. And so this isn't optional. This isn't up for debate. If you do not draft a tackle, we have a problem. We saw it last year with Carson Wentz. You don't protect him, he starts running around, interceptions and fumbles happen. Best thing the Colts can do here at 23 is get the Anthony Costanzo replacement that this team has to have in order for Carson Wentz to be successful. And that's exactly what they're going to do here. With the 23rd pick in the LouieTeeNetwork mock draft, the Indianapolis Colts select every year, there are 1 or 2 picks in the first round that you say, okay, I know I got that one right. And usually the team on the clock at 24 is a team that you point to and say, I know I got that one right. The most predictable team in the draft every year is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, they don't always have a first round pick, like last year, for instance, didn't have a first round pick. But when they do have a first round pick, we already know. We already know what they're going to do because they're an open book. All right. Their GM, Kevin Colbert, does the draft the same way every year. We talk about, hey, don't reach for needs. Okay. That'll get you got. Okay. The Steelers have the opposite approach. It's not best player available. It's best player available that also fits need. So even though that player may be a second round player on most people's board, they're like, hey, we need a fill in the blank. So we're taking him here at 19. We need a fill in the blank. So we're going to take him at 27. And I'm looking at the Steelers roster. And yeah, they lost the safety or center. Marquise Pouncey retired after a Hall of Fame 11-year career. And he's probably going to be in Canton when it's all said and done. But I'm like, you could get another interior offensive lineman later. Now, they could decide, nope, that's the biggest need we have. Ben's 87 years old. We got to make sure he's protected. This pick could be Creed Humphrey, center out of Oklahoma. Could very well be. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was. But I'm looking around at the Steelers, and one of the biggest issues last year is they didn't run the football. And I couldn't stand James Conner. Still can't stand James Conner. He's as ordinary gets. He's not extraordinary. He's extraordinary. Well, they moved on from him, but they still need a back. Now, you can say, well, they got Benny Snell. Benny Snell's cool, but he's not real, as in a real number one running back. He's cool. He's a good second running back to have. They've got a chance to change the game at the running back position. Remember when they were really good? They had an elite, dynamic, one-of-a-kind back. They've got a chance, not necessarily one of a kind, but they've got a chance to get a guy that's a difference maker here. And you know when you see a Pittsburgh Steeler, they smell, they look, they feel, they all the senses tell you that's a Steeler. And this next guy, everything about him screams Pittsburgh Steeler. With the 24th pick in the LouieTeeNetwork mock draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select So the Jacksonville Jaguars are back on the clock. Look, the first time it was so nice they decided to come back and do it twice in the first round. This pick via the Los Angeles Rams in the Jalen Ramsey trade. So that's the gift that keeps on giving. And Herb is back for seconds. Now, they've gotten the quarterback position squared away. They've done some things in the offseason to shore up the safety position, including getting Rayshon Jenkins. But I don't think they're done at the safety position. That's a whole overhaul that they're doing back there in the back end. And it just so happens that no safety has been taken yet. And there's a ball hawking free safety that people love, that Urban Meyer himself loves, that's sitting here at 25. And oh, by the way, the safety position hasn't been touched. It's like 6 inches of snow and it's white outside and nobody stepped in it. It's just beautiful. And that's what the Jaguars are looking at the safety position like, man, we got a chance to step all in that front yard. Put all kinds of footprints and snow angels in it. That's what they're going to do at the safety position right now. 25th pick in the draft belongs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And at 25, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to select Cleveland Browns are now on the clock at 26. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. They're sitting here and they're saying, wow, didn't expect this guy to be here. Don't know what he's doing here. I don't care what he's doing here. I'm going to take him. They're turning in the card with no delay. Much faster than slow. They're getting up and they're handing this thing off to Roger Goodell. Cleveland Browns, 27th pick overall, select Baltimore Ravens are now on the clock for what is going to be the first of 2 selections in the final 6 picks of this draft. So it's amazing how this thing came about so quickly. I have some thoughts on that I'm going to give you in a little bit as to what the Chiefs did. And I think the Ravens made out like bandits personally for a guy that had already declared he wasn't going to play another snap for them and wasn't going to sign a long-term deal with them. I thought they made out like bandits personally. And they've got a chance to not only trade that guy, but replace him. And I think the Chiefs could have done the same thing. We'll talk about that here in a second. But bottom line is the Ravens are like, cool, shipped him off, picked up a first, a third, a fourth. And guess what? We're going to replace him right now at 27. It doesn't get much easier than this. And I don't think the Chiefs thought this guy was going to be here, but that's why they say patience is a virtue. With the 27th pick in the 2021 LouieTeeNetwork mock draft, the Baltimore Ravens select off to Nolans we go as the Saints are now on the clock with the 28th pick in the draft. And an era is over in New Orleans with Drew Brees hanging it up after 15 years in New Orleans. And so now the question is, can they keep the party going with Jameis Winston and or Taysom Hill at quarterback? We're going to find out this upcoming season, but it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do offensively and how it's going to work. But to me, if the Saints want to have a chance, yeah, the offense needs to be good. They've got playmakers there. They can find a way. They did it with Teddy Bridgewater. The way they're going to be able to do it, like they did with Teddy Bridgewater a couple of years ago when he had to play for an injured Drew Brees, is play defense. And I think if you're the Saints, That's what you've got to hang your hat on. At times, this defense can be elite. They just lost Trey Hendrickson in free agency, so there's a void there from an edge rushing standpoint, and maybe they fill that at some point, but they're not going to fill that here. What they're looking for is a difference maker on the second level. They feel like they've got some stuff. Look, they could use a corner. Let's make no bones about it. They could use a corner right here, but they look at this draft and they say, hey, there's value later on in the draft at corner. We don't have to take one here. And Dick Sherman is sitting out there if need be. If things don't go the way we want them to, Dick Sherman's still available. I wouldn't do that if I were New Orleans, but they can get a corner at some point in this draft, and I think that's what they're relying on, the guy that they can't get later on in the draft. And, there's this conversation out here that the Saints have 8 or 9 picks, and that's way too many for Mickey Loomis. He didn't make 8 or 9 picks in a draft because they don't have that kind of roster space. He wants more like 6 picks, 5, 6 picks, maybe 7 max, not 8 or 9. And so that there's going to be a point in this draft where they trade up just to get rid of a couple of picks, get a guy that they really want. And we know the Saints do that all the time. They're not bashful about trading. So that could be the case here, that they take a corner and then double back and get the guy that they're taking here in the second round and package up some picks and move up and get him. I think they just say, hey, let's get this guy, and then we'll worry about what corner we want to target. And if we need to package up picks to get that guy, we'll do that. So here they stay, and it could be a receiver too. And look, whatever they decide to do, it's going to be somebody that is in the Nolans area already. I think they go linebacker here and knock out a need and upgrade this defense exponentially with this selection. 28th overall, the New Orleans Saints select So the Green Bay Packers sit at 29 on the clock here, and they've made a living off of not drafting first-round wide receivers. Well, it's easy to do that when you've got one of the best to ever do it at the quarterback position, and so you just feed him whatever, and he usually takes that and turns it into a 5-course meal, not a 4, a 5-course meal. Well, at some point, you got to address wide receiver. You don't have a receiver, and that includes Devontae Adams, that is under contract past 2021. You got to do something, right? They may, but it won't be here at 29. That's for damn sure, because they just don't do first-round wide receivers. Well, guess what? They do first-round corners. Now, they haven't always hit on these first-round corners, but man, do they love drafting themselves a first-round corner. They failed on the second-round corner out of Iowa, Joshua Jackson. What is it? Is it Josh Jackson? Is it Josh Johnson? Whatever it is, it's Josh Doo-doo, because he stinks. And this will be his last year in Green Bay. They did hit on Jair Alexander, but I don't think Kevin King is a guy that'll be back past this year. They signed him on a 1-year deal to bring him back. I think they have to do something at corner here. They realize that they're preparing for the future, even if that future may exist without Aaron Rodgers. So I expect them to go corner here. And there's a guy that they absolutely love here. They've interviewed him multiple times. They've been out to his pro day and talked to him as well. I think they're smitten with this guy, and maybe a little early for my blood here, but at the end of the day, you get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy, and that's exactly what I think the Packers are going to do here at 29. Is the 29th pick in the draft belongs to the Green Bay Packers, and they're going to spend it on there are few GMs in the league doing it better than Brandon Beane right now. That Brandon Beane he's on a short list of GMs that are absolutely murdering the NFL landscape right now. And Chris Ballard is up there, Brandon Beane. There are several other guys that I hold in high regard, but not many are higher than Brandon Beane on the list. You know, the move to go get Stephon Diggs last year and to see the season he turned in with Josh Allen, and everybody questioned the Josh Allen pick, and he's been just home run after home run after home run. They re-signed Matt Milano when most didn't think that was going to be possible. They bring back Darrell Williams, who I thought was a godsend for them last year. And they bring back John Feliciano as well, who was a really good interior offensive lineman for them. I just think they've continued to press all the right buttons. And the one thing that I've always said that they've needed was more presence off the edge. Never felt like I look at their second level. It's one of the best in the NFL. I look at their third level. I love their safeties. They've been staples of that defense. And of course, their cornerback, Tre'Davious White, is one of the best in the business. So, the opposite corner from him has always been a source of contention. Well, they've gotten by with Levi Wallace and last year Josh Norman. And so they've done a really good job defensively, but they still are missing a threat up front. Jerry Hughes is getting old. He's getting long in the tooth, and he's not the guy that he once was. And that's okay. It happens. Father Time is undefeated. They've got to address. Mario Addison is cool, but he's not really cool. They went out and signed F.A. Obata. Yeah, that's cool. I like him. I don't love him. They need somebody off the edge. This guy that they're taking here, he's raw. Man, is he raw as the day is long. But a lot of people, including myself, look at him and they see Danielle Hunter with the right tutelage. You coach this guy up. He's a big slab of clay. You coach him up properly, and you could have a 15-sack guy a season. You could have you a double-digit sack bagger. And I think that's what they're banking on here. And so with the 30th pick in the 2021 NFL draft, the Buffalo Bills select So I want to discuss the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs real quick and what they decided to do at 31, which was trade their pick to the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Chiefs panicked. I think they jumped the gun a bit. I thought they should have been patient. And look, I get it. Patrick Mahomes had a disastrous Super Bowl, and it can all be traced back to the offensive line and having the injuries. They moved on from Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher this offseason. They went out and shored up the interior of the offensive line. They went out and signed ex-Patriots guard Joe Thuney, and they also signed out of retirement Long. So they've done some things on the interior to shore it up. I don't know if Duvernay Tardif is coming back or not. Laurent Duvernay Tardif, one of the best names in all of football, is coming back or not after he sat out due to COVID last year. But I said all of that to say this. Yeah, you had some issues at tackle, and you could have addressed them via the draft. And look, you don't want to put any Joe Schmo out there protecting the blind side of Patrick Mahomes. I get that. And so you wanted to get a guy that was a proven veteran that can get it done in this league at a high level, and there was one sitting out there via trade, and so you made it. I understand that as well, but he's going to cost you a lot of money that you really don't have. So why not invest in a guy here in the back end of the first round that's a young guy that can come in and help? They're in win now mode. They're not waiting for a young guy to develop. You would love to go the route that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went with Tristan Wirfs last year, draft, insert and just let him go. Watch him spread his wings, fly away, and only give up one sack the entire year. You would love to see it. But they don't have the time to wait. They need a known commodity. So on that end, I get it. I just think they could have waited. To give up a first, a third, and a fourth in this year's draft and have to turn around and tear up his contract and give him brand new money, man, that is a lot to give up when you could have gotten yourself a guy here at the back end of the draft. Now, again, you didn't know how the draft is going to play out. My thing is, and that's true, this is all you had to do. Once you saw, and you should have had a list of 5 tackles that you said, I'm willing to take at 31. If those 5 guys are gone, or it could have been a list of 4, or it could have been a list of 3. And if the list was 3, you might as well just make the trade because those 3 tackles probably weren't going to get to you at 31. But if you make a list of 5 and you say, if one of these 5 tackles are here, we're going to pull the trigger. If they're gone, as soon as they're gone, we pull the trigger with Baltimore before the pick and we get this same deal that you just made. You get this same deal done. After those 4 or 5 guys are taken off the board, you make the deal with Baltimore. They would have still taken the deal. By doing it this early, you didn't give yourself a chance. Anyway, I digress. Their loss or gain, however you want to perceive the situation, is Baltimore's gain. Here come the Baltimore Ravens at 31. And the Baltimore Ravens, I think they came out like bandits here. And they need an edge rusher. I'm not going to hold you up. They need an edge rusher. They've needed an edge rusher for years. They haven't really had a true edge rushing threat since they lost Terrell Suggs 3-4 years ago to age. Father Time came and snatched him away, and they really haven't upgraded that position. They've tried, Jalen Ferguson's of the world, and they've tried, and I don't think they knew the powder keg they were sitting on with Zadarius Smith. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't think they did, because if they did, they would have given Zadarius Smith the money they just gave to Matthew Judon. So I think they didn't know what he was going to evolve into. Whatever the case may be, they need somebody off the edge. They're going to take another swing at it. You can't stop swinging for the fences. They're going to take another swing at it here with this pick they acquired from the Chiefs at 31. So this is an interesting pick as we get to the final one in the first round. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers sit here, Super Bowl champions. This is the most coveted pick every year in the draft, because that means you hoisted the Lombardi. That said, the Buccaneers really don't need anything. They didn't lose any of their guys. They're going to run it back again. They brought back Shaq Barrett. They brought back Ndamukong Suh. They brought back Chris Godwin. They brought back Levante David. They brought back Gronk. They brought back Leonard Fournette. They brought back the whole cast of characters. The gang's all back. So they really don't need anything at 32. But you still have to plan for the future. They want to get out of this pick. And I think if I'm a betting man, I'd bet that they're going to get out of this pick. There are two players that I look at and I say someone's going to come up for at 32, and the Bucs are going to be able to get out of this pick. Now, I bitched up. I couldn't decide on which one and who was going to be the team, so I just let the Bucs make a selection here. But Jacksonville at 33 is going to take tight end Pat Freiermuth. Book it if someone doesn't come up in front of them at 32 and take him. So if you want Pat Freiermuth, you're going to have to come up to 32 and get him. If no one is looking to get Pat Freiermuth at 32, which I don't blame them, then the other guy would be Stanford quarterback Davis Mills. Sneaks into the first round. You get the fifth-year option. Doesn't have to play right away, and you have that extra year cushion. I could see that happening too. Now, with the moves made, the Bears went up and got a quarterback. The Patriots went and got a quarterback. Who's really sitting there that needs a quarterback that would come back into the first round? Could the Eagles do it? Sure. Could the Washington football team do it? Absolutely. Would these teams do it? I don't know, and I think the answer is no. So the question is, who's going to come up and get a quarterback here? Could be Kellen Mond for all we know. At the end of the day, quarterback or Pat Freiermuth, I think somebody's going to trade up to get one of those guys here at 32. But I didn't have the stones to do it. So I took the bitch way out, copped out, and I just gave Tampa Bay the player that makes the most sense, because at some point you're going to have to replace JPP. Some point you're going to have to replace Shaq Barrett. Why not draft a guy here now? It just makes too much sense for me. He's fallen down the draft board. People have questions. Who's the best role model for Gregory Rousseau than JPP? Same size, length, all of that good stuff, same movement skills. I think JPP's a much better athlete, because I don't think Gregory Rousseau is doing 80 backflips in a row, but that's no here nor there. Bottom line is, you get a guy that at one point in this process was viewed as a top 15 pick. You're getting him at 32. What's the fuss? Turn the card in, keep it pushing. So let's recap the picks real quick, and I want to ask you at this point to subscribe to Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing, and hit that like button if you haven't already done so. And I also want you to come and join your man Louie T for the 2021 draft party here on the Louie T Network. Days 1 and 2 of the draft we will be covering live. Look forward to seeing you then. Remember, get off the bench and get in the game. You guys have a good one.
Louie T Network.